became a pastor, my first assignment was in Rock Hill, South Carolina. When I arrived at the church, the pastor that had been there prior to me, who had retired, his name was Jesse Sims, and he had been there for 23 years. So he came to me and he said, "Would it be better for you if my wife and I attended a different church? We do not want to interfere with your ministry." Well, I had known Reverend Sims basically my whole life. He was my counselor whenever I attended boys camp years ago, and I just have a lot of respect for him. And I said, "Absolutely not. I want you to stay here." And I said, "If someone comes to you and asks you to marry them, bury them, or dedicate their babies, I'm fine with all of that." I said, "The more you do, the less I have to do." And so people did come to him and ask him about doing things. And whenever they would come to him, he would say, "I'll be happy to do that, but if it's all right with you, please let me get our new pastor to assist me." And he would come and ask, and we would do it together. And the entire time that I was there, he was always gracious and always making me a part of anything that people asked him to do. I have a lot of respect for the way that he handled that. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. We've been looking at James, in the book of James, and James is talking to the Christian church. He's not writing to people that need to find Jesus or understand who Jesus is. That's not his audience. He is writing to Christians. These Christians are not huddled together in one place where all they have to deal with are other Christians, but they're scattered all throughout. And so he's writing this letter and trying to tell them how to live a Christian life in the world in which they live. And so one of the things that James comes up with is he says that jealousy and selfishness are not a part of God. Jealousy and selfishness are not a part of God. Now, I do want to say here that selfishness and jealousy are human traits. And it's something that we have all had or have in our life. And what God wants us to do is come to a place in our life so that we can surrender our will to Him. Now, there are Christians that are walking around, there are Christians that are in churches that are full of jealousy and selfishness, but they're Christians. They have asked God to forgive them of their sins. They're doing their very best to live for Him every day. They're Christians, but they still have a lot of selfishness in their life. And selfishness creates jealousy sometimes. What God really wants of us is to mature to a place in our life, and this is kind of where James is going with this. As Christians, we need to come to a place in our life where we can surrender everything of who we are to God. God, my opinion is not the most important. For me to get my way is not the most important thing. You see, James says that wherever you find jealousy and selfishness, that's where you're going to find disaster and ultimately evil. Because even as Christians, if we come to a place where we're so selfish and we're so jealous of something that we create turmoil, then we end up creating chaos in what is supposed to be God's church. And James is saying we need to be careful about that. The answer to that, whenever we start feeling those emotions and it's going to be all about us, is just take a moment and say, who is this really about? Is this about me, or is this about the best for God's kingdom? James goes on to say, he says, the best thing we can do is speak to God and say, God, help me through this. I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling selfish. What can I do? And James says that God's wisdom, what he gives us, he says is pure, is peace-loving, is gentle, and is willing to yield. So where are you in your life? Do you have those moments of jealousy? Do you feel like it's got to be your way or no way? We need to turn to God and say, God, show me what I need to do. Allow me to fully surrender my life to you so that I can be your light for a world that needs you. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May you truly be able to be God's light to the world this week. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.